everyone, and welcome to L'Exclusive, the podcast hosted by PaperStreet Web Design and Marketing. As always, I'm your host, Nancy, the Client Relations Manager here. Today, I'm joined by Allison, our Content Director.
Hello, everyone.
I'm joined by Autumn, our Content Manager. As
Hello.
you might expect, we have a content theme this week. For this month's episode, we're going to be talking about your blog, and specifically your law firm's blog. Now, whether you call it your blog, whether you call it your firm news, whether you call it your legal insights, something that's a blog is pretty much instrumental to any kind of marketing campaign that you're going to have. The reason being is that a blog is something that demonstrates your authenticity and your expertise on your legal matters. It's something that can show up in search traffic. So it's SEO, even if you didn't want to rank higher on Google or weren't actively pursuing a ranking higher on Google, it does that for you. You can share it on social media. So it's basically content that creates itself. And it's great for you to have just to purely and simply get your name out there for branding purposes. So it's true, whenever I'm talking with our clients, we always tell them that you're going to need this blog. And I think as Allison and Autumn can attest, that's not always an easy conversation to have with our attorneys. What are some of the things we hear about that?
The number one pushback we get is, what am I supposed to write about? Who's supposed to write these blogs? Which is what we're hoping to, enlighten everybody with today, some easy blog topic ideas. And really, once you start, thinking about what to write, it doesn't stop coming to you. It becomes part of your daily routine. Like, oh, that would be a great blog topic. That would be a great blog topic. So we hope to kind of inspire that here today with this podcast.
Notice too that attorneys often just get overwhelmed because they obviously have so much on their plates. So blogs just sound like such an extra thing to do. But as Allison mentioned, once you get in the flow of it, it becomes a lot more naturally. But just carving out time to make sure that you can get it done.
And that's the truth. One of the things that's really important to talk about is that, for minimum, you should have at least 2 blog posts a month. That's what we say. That's kind of the minimum. Ideally, if you could get 1 a week out, even better. But 2 a month is great. Now, if you're a larger firm or even a mid-sized firm, 2 a month is pretty easy to divide amongst your attorneys. But if you're a sole practitioner or a very small firm, you may have to consider what your options are going to be. Either you have a writer that you work with, you have an agency that can help you, you find someone on Upwork, whatever works best for you. But having a blog once, then not blogging for 6 months, coming back, that's really not what needs to be in best practices. You need to have something at least twice a month. So like I said, however that looks for your firm, dividing it amongst your attorneys, getting help where you need it, that should really be your goal. And then as Allison pointed out, that a lot of times the attorneys have trouble because it's just like writer's block. What are we going to talk about? And I think because the problem is that attorneys see the blog as a one trick pony. It's going to be, oh, whatever we've done wonderfully lately, and that's it. So they see the blog as kind of like this PR piece, or that they have to comment on local court news or something like that. But that's completely not what is necessary for a law firm's blog. Yes, those things should be there, but there are a breadth of topics that are available to all lawyers to talk about with their blogs. And we're going to talk about 10 options that truly can work for really almost all practice areas and all attorneys. And even if the 1 or 2 don't match, the others can. So hopefully this will provide you with some food for thought and just get you some inspiration and realizing that you don't have to create this one particular perfect piece of content. Pick some of the things that are easy for you to talk about. And once you start doing those, everything will become a lot easier. All right. So the first topic is the most important topic. And it's really, this in particular is applicable to every law firm that's either a client of PaperStreet's or just out there. That is frequently asked questions. Now, when we're thinking about frequently asked questions, they can be the questions that something you're going to find on Google, which Allison, I'll ask you to clarify about that in a second. Or they could be the questions that you yourselves are answered at the firm itself. So Allison, could you explain how to do that with the Google search and how you can get those kinds of questions for blog topics?
So every Google search, every query that you put into Google is going to spit out a section called the people also ask. So this is going to, from tacos near me to, what's the divorce law in Florida? And if you click on those, they come across with the little arrows down. You can click on them and it pulls in the snippet, answers the question real quick. Those are direct search questions. You can literally copy and paste them and answer them in your own words. It's like marketing gold. And Google set up really great where if you start clicking on a few of them, it's going to expand the list. It's going to get really long. So there's kind of like an endless supply of those questions. So if you start Googling queries related to some of the questions you're asked the most, it doesn't even have to be a question. It could be just like maybe perhaps a phrase that you're putting in. It's going to give you a really curated list of great topics that you can just essentially, you know, farm them out to your attorneys and have them answer the questions. Say, hey guys, I need everyone to answer 5 questions from this list. And you have the unique content there that you could easily curate into a post. We use them all the time for inspiration for blogs and actual content. We'll actually use that question as a header in like a page of content.
And it's easy to write this content because it's the most applicable to your firm. So it's something connected to your practice area. It's something that your potential clients are going to ask you in their meeting that they have with you, or it's some of the things they're interested in, even wondering if they have a claim. So this is really just a quick way to do that. And then if you take it a little further, there are tools like Answer the Public where you could do the exact same thing. And that will also provide you a list with some of the questions that you can do and you can answer. And last but not least, I mean, it's the truth. You can look at your competitor websites because if you are a family law in Orlando, a family law firm in Orlando, the other family law in a firm in Orlando may have frequently asked questions on their site as well. Obviously, don't copy their content, but you have to realize that if their website is more helpful and showcases their abilities and knack to handle the claims that these people are looking for, that may be what convinces them to choose that firm. So it's important to realize that by answering these questions, that you're actually catering to what people sincerely want to know because it's popping up on Google and saying, yes, this is in fact what people want to know.
Right.
And then the one thing that I get asked a lot when I talk about this content material, is that they'll ask me, well, if I answer someone's question, doesn't that mean they're not going to contact the firm? Absolutely not. And if it does, that's a good thing. So, for example, if you say in a question, you explain how long the statute of limitations is for a truck accident claim. Maybe their accident was 10 years ago, so they can't file a claim. Isn't that better that you answered that so that someone with the 10-year-old claim isn't going to contact you? And then the other questions, by answering it and providing them with detail, they may realize they have a case. So, for example, if you tell them, yes,
Exactly.
absolutely, you can receive alimony even if you've never worked, then they'll say, oh, okay, well, then I do need a lawyer. So there isn't much of a risk that answering those questions is going to narrow your pool, except for the fact that it may narrow out the pool of people who really legitimately did not have a legal claim.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you answer their question, you will get their phone call if the phone call is necessary. And if you think about that just from a human experience, how many times have you Googled anything? I mean, it doesn't even have to be related to law, and you just genuinely want the answer to your question, and you get the runaround from all these sites that are like, you know, call us for the details, call us for the details. And while that's somewhat applicable, right? Because no case is ever going to be able, you know, you're not going to be able to say what they can do for you, you know, in just a standard FAQ. But when you can answer what's the statute of limitations, does this warrant a case? Can I sue this person? All of those things can be answered. And by you answering that question for them, you are going to be the person that they're going to pick up the phone and call to further that conversation, essentially.
And I would add that it also just places you as more of the, experienced, person. I wouldn't want to call you an expert, but the person that knows the question, that they feel comfortable because they know that you can actually help them too.
Yep.
It's important too to remember that when you're answering the question, talk to it on a human level, because if you are answering their questions in an approachable or an engaging way, that also gives them a little less of that fear factor because they know, oh, well, this person answered that question on the site, so they're going to expect me to answer similar questions. I feel comfortable because again, we're not doctors, we don't have the white coat syndrome, but as lawyers, we do have that fear of just mistrust of attorneys. So if you're on your website showing helpful information and presenting it in a way that appeals to your audience, they'll feel more comfortable and they may choose you because they know you're not going to trick them, get them out of their money or anything like that.
Right.
So first and foremost, I don't care if you're a mergers and acquisitions law firm and you're appealing to general counsels. I don't care if you're a personal injury lawyer, if you're a family lawyer, even if you do minute law about horse law, somebody is probably going to Google something connected up to their case. And if you have the answers, you appear right there. And that's going to be what convinces them to call you. All right. Now, on the flip side, we're going to turn this into an interesting blog topic. Okay. And this is one that a lot of the law firms like, wait, I can do that. But this is the fun one. Okay. And the fun one, and I had a law school professor who actually did this. She started every single one of my law firm classes with a news from pop culture. She was really into Us Weekly. She might be listening to this podcast. I'm going to thank her for doing that. But she would put up Us Weekly and she would say, okay, this is what happened. Or we watched the movie Juno and we talked about the legal matters. How can you turn popular culture into a blog post? Okay. And I know some of you may be cringing, saying it's not professional, things like that. But if you're a law firm that caters to people, family law, criminal law, personal injury law, even wills, trusts, and estates, if there's matters like a big movie that comes out that talks about a legal matter or something very, very, very big in the news, you can talk about that with a legal perspective. You can still demonstrate your expertise. It can still be a professional piece, but something that's going to catch people's interests. And this is what's really great for social media, social posts.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the search is already there. You know the answers to the question. This is law that's applicable to, what you're doing. You might even have an opinion on it, that's not political that you can share. So this is, kind of just hand feeding you ideas that you can, conversations that are already readily available that you can jump into and contribute to.
And I think the mindset is that pop culture would be fluff, but that's not even true because one of the things that I had seen when I was actually, this was like way back in the day when I was a content writer, when Kate Spade had committed suicide, a lot of questions that were being asked were, can a psychiatrist be held liable when a patient commits suicide? So that content is not by any means fluff. So
Right.
popular culture led itself to a very, very informative legal piece. And yet it was still something that appealed to the market, that appealed to people who were genuinely interested in. And if you post something like that, people will read it. They'll remember that you created that memorable, engaging content, maybe even share it. So that allows you to attract clients in a still professional way, but just in a way that's thinking outside of the box and helps reach people who aren't necessarily in the immediate need of a particular legal matter. All right. Number three on our list is going to be local news and events, which probably sounds pretty self-explanatory. But Allison Autumn, would you like to clarify on that for us?
So these could be, kind of events that happen every year, right? So I'm in South Florida. We have Boca Bash every year. It's a big boating event. That's something like that's really applicable to maybe PI lawyers. But kind of like, countrywide, right? We have a season for like summer camps, for example, fair season. These are all PI examples, but the things about, kind of the stuff that's happening in the community, what could result from that you might be able to touch on, right? Or it could be something local in terms of like, it just happened last night. Maybe, there's like a construction accident on a bridge or, a really popular thing for the local is the intersections with the top accidents, making those like being able to say, oh, Okeechobee and Military, right? The actual names. There's some great local marketing going on there. But really anything that's happening in the news, it's going to vary vastly, from where you are. But again, either approaching it from having an opinion or approaching it from being able to offer some sort of extra information based on your understanding of the law. So you're kind of like explaining it further. Both of those approaches are going to have value.
Yeah, I think as Nancy and Allison both touched on it earlier too, but the more that you can just get your firm name attached to anything too. I mean, it's great just for great marketing purposes. And people are Googling these things. They're all anything that's newsworthy from celebrities to the local news. People are searching for those things. So it just gives you more opportunity to get your name out there.
And you also kind of create the opportunity for the news to come back to you and say, hey, I saw you did this. We need a lawyer to comment on X, Y, and Z. Like, can I call you for a quick quote? And now, you've kind of like got your name through the local media. Maybe you establish yourself as a source there. That's always a huge opportunity for any law firm.
It doesn't have to be something that's local news per se. It could just be like something that's going around in your community. So for example, like my particular community, there's a lot of golf carts. So talk about golf cart
Yep.
liability, what to keep safe, what tips to keep, what teens need to know about golf cart driving. Or obviously, if you live in an area that's got a lot of families and they're going to probably celebrate Halloween, are you able to distribute all kinds of candies? Do you have a legal obligation to not have candy with nuts in it? Things that are not necessarily local news, but still relevant in your area that you can comment on. Like one of the things we did for a family law firm was talking about how to divide up custody at the holidays. So even if it's not local news per se, in that it's not in the news itself, like a newspaper or TV article, just talking about what's a relevant event going on that surrounds you, just as Allison and Autumn said, you could end up in the news about it. So not only are you providing helpful information, you get your law firm name out there, and then maybe someone will say, "Oh, that was really interesting information that you had about sharing custody at the holidays. What other tips do you have?" Or, great idea about how to keep safe with the candy you distribute at Halloween. What else do you suggest? So it provides information that makes you look knowledgeable. It's relevant to what people are going to have on their minds, and it opens the door for that further branding. Because again, it's great to capture clients when they're actually in the moment looking for an attorney, but it's also just as good to be the attorneys that are in the back of their mind if and when the time need arises for them, their family member, their colleague, anybody like that. So keeping relevant is just very important.
I think the more you align your firm with the community too is great, because it just really, people start recognizing you as kind of part of the community. So anytime that, like as Nancy said, like they just show things that show that you care. Maybe you care about the kids, you care about events that are going on. Perhaps you're involved with a local event that is going on. That's a great way to kind of, mention that in a blog post too. And just really just getting your name aligned with community events, local community activities is a fantastic way too.
So, and in that, we branch into our next topic, which is very similar. It's connected to that, but it's a little different. But we'll talk about new laws in your community or new court decisions in your community that have an impact. So it could be something that if your area even just did something as minute as added a traffic light, what do you think the impact of that will be? But then comment on other court decisions, even if you weren't particularly the one that handled that case. Anything that's impactful to you, whether it's a new law about vaccines, whether, of course, it's the new abortion laws that are changing rampantly across the country. It doesn't have to be per se something that you handle exactly, and maybe stay away from some of the controversial topics. But if you can just show what your opinion is on some of the laws that are happening, or just provide insight. And that is one that I would say is very, very, very applicable for the corporate law firms that I talk to, or the firms that are what we call B2B, business to business. So they're law firms that work with mostly other businesses or other general counsel members. Because a lot of times they are hoping, those particular clients are hoping you will shed light on a complicated law. So for example,
Exactly.
we have a client that the law impacted how they run their business. So it was something that they needed to consult with another attorney about because it impacted their business. So you can always talk about some of the laws that would impact your client. Again, you don't have to say you're the lawmaker, you don't have to be the one to have handled the court case, but just explaining to people what they need to know, again, builds trust, builds authenticity, and it shows you why people can trust you and consider you and continue to come to your site to learn more about what they need to know.
Yeah. There likely are no lawyers in the newsroom. And we all know that that law, the language, the way that all of that legislation is written is confusing for the layperson. It's almost your duty as as a lawyer to tell us what that means. This is what this means for businessmen. This is how this affects traffic goers. This is how it affects, men paying alimony in Florida, right? When that law changes, what does that mean? Don't regurgitate what the news is saying. Write it simply. What does that mean for the people, that you're representing, the people in your community? Make it understandable.
And make it in a way that shows how you can help. So, like, there may be people that are implicated by the law. So, if they're affected by it, tell them that you can help. Say, "Hey, this new DUI law is impacting claims 2 years and older." There is nothing wrong. It doesn't go against bar ethics or anything like that to just say, if you've been involved in a DOI in the past few years, this law will impact you. You're not saying hire me, please don't do that. But you can write it in a way to say, if you are affected, you may have a case. So that's
Right.
just something that's even educating the public. And as Allison said, it's kind of like what you should be doing as a lawyer, is helping people understand the law when they just may not have even realized it applied to them. Again, very similar to what we're talking about here is your case summaries. In other words, what is happening in the cases that you've handled? And we present these in a variety of different ways, not just blog posts. But Allison and Dawn, would you like to elaborate on how we've done these as blog posts and others?
So I think the case summaries is some of the best blogging material that you can put up. It is proving that you, right, are worth your salt, that you know what you're doing. And the biggest pushback we get, right, and Autumn, I know we could probably say this verbatim, is, well, that's confidential. I can't say that. And while we understand and appreciate that, you can absolutely wordsmith your case summaries to still have like the kind of impact that you're looking for, showcasing your expertise without giving anything away, right? So it's not Cleveland Clinic in Broward County. It's one of the largest healthcare providers in South Florida. Sounds just as good, keeping the confidentiality there. The other great thing about case summaries is obviously it's material that you're always happening, right? If you don't have case summaries, then obviously the business isn't going well. So have your attorneys write up a quick summary, expand on it. Situate it in kind of like a problem solution, right? This was the problem they came with, and this is how we fixed it, the solution. It could be that simple. It doesn't have to, we don't have to overcomplicate it. But case summaries are the one thing your competitors can't do. That's uniquely you. And if you can put some effort into gathering them, we are always going to recommend it 1,000%.
Also, I think it's such a
And
fantastic way to show like how wonderful your firm is and all the experience that you have. I mean, some firms that we talk to, if you're a personal injury attorney, there's a lot of ways you can showcase your results in with numbers and like a lot of flashy results. But sometimes we have firms that can't do that. But case studies give you that opportunity to really be able to show your results in a more informative way too, to really talk about the case and how you help somebody else.
And even it's important to realize that sometimes people don't realize the flow of how these cases worked. So it could be something along the lines of, this was a case considering a will dispute, and the family needed to present X, Y, and Z, again, in a confidential way. And we were able to settle because the family produced X, Y, and Z documentation. So again, I'm an attorney myself. So I understand that everything has to be confidential. But in the magic of the world, especially if a case was written in its opinion, it is going to be public knowledge. Just try to come up with a way to use what you've done in a way to say, well, this is how this case flowed. This is what happened, because it could be important. Like, let's say the court decided that you can't have a child testify in a particular case. So you can say, well, in this case that happened, we thought the child would be able to testify, but they weren't. And that's just something that gets information out there as well. So there are so many. This is the kind of thing where you might say, as a law firm, I don't know how to do that. This is something that you should be considering, and it is worth talking to someone who knows the bar ethics, who's a professional writer, that can help you create this content in a way that produces it in a completely ethical and safe way that still does the same marketing effects that it really needs to be able to do. All right. And then another one that people come up to us, and I think it's just simply a mind trap that attorneys fall into, is that they create these bios or they put this information on this website that's cut dry and offers no insights whatsoever. I went to this law school, I handle these cases, and I'm in law 10 years. That's nice. And yes, people are going to want to know if you're experienced and if you're in what law school you went to, if there's an alma mater that you share or they happen to root for your basketball team, great. But you should be using your legal column, whether it's your legal insights, your blog, whatever you call it, to shed some more light on your attorneys, your firm, and things like that. No, you don't have to go into nitty gritty. You don't have to put pictures of the kids if you don't want, but use it as an opportunity to really have your potential clients get to know you. Alison, what are some of those ideas that we've suggested for that?
I could talk about this topic for hours. My favorite thing is humanizing the lawyers on a website. And often we do that right through the bios. So PaperStreet, I mean, to date, we've probably written maybe 50 attorney bios, and we do a lot of those with interviews. And I can tell you that the people in your firm are a lot more interesting than you're giving them credit for. You know, how they fell into being a lawyer and doing what they're doing, what they like best about their jobs, you know, what they do in their off time, how they would define themselves. It might surprise you. And, you know, the younger generation is going to connect with lawyers based on that material, not where you went to law school or how long you've been doing what you're doing. And, you know, I think taking the time to remember that everybody in that office is human and spotlighting that occasionally is going to get you really far. And it doesn't have to be so individual. You know, I think sometimes people get scared. Well, I don't want to be the source of the bio. You know, I don't want to have my picture up, or the blog, excuse me. But Nancy, for PaperStreet, you did a really great job recently with like International Women's Day. And we all had a quote up and we all got to say something. And it was kind of like everybody got to share a little bit about themselves in a way that wasn't like, it wasn't intrusive or anything of that nature. Mother's Day is coming up. You know, that lends an opportunity to, you know, highlight all the moms in your office who are, you know, superhero legal warriors, and also, you know, the favorite person at home. There's a lot of ways that you can, you know, tie the personality of your team into the blogs that you're writing.
We found at PaperStreet as well as one of the first pages that your potential clients tend to land on is the bios, because it's, people want to know who they're working with. So there's a genuine interest in understanding a lot about who your attorneys are. They want to, that you're going to be, you're basically, you're who's helping them. So they want to know that, are you, I think to Nancy's point, it's still very important to explain, like, you know, where you went to law school and everything like that. People want to know that. They want to know you're like a credible person, but they really want to know who you are, because you're going to be working with them for many months. Or are you someone that's going to be the right personality for them too? So I think this is a great way to showcase that. And in more than just the bio pages, then you can pull it into blog opportunities or stories about the different attorneys at the firm.
Yeah, social. It's also like, these are great pieces for being shared on social, right? If PaperStreet writes a blog about me, I'm going to share it on my own social channels. You get all the love from your own family and friends and colleagues, and it's something that, you know, that usually spreads really well. So it has a great, you know, kind of engagement factor as well.
Plus, I think it's fun for the attorneys to have something more interesting to write about than maybe sharing something about themselves and just writing about cases all the time. So.
Exactly, right? It kind of breaks up the monotony. It's something fun to do. Yeah, I agree.
It's also, it's true too, because you know, it offers an insight into your mindsets. Like, for example, who was your mentor? If you demonstrate who your mentor was or who's your inspiration in life, they'll get to know you and what type of lawyer you are. You know, maybe you're a type that's a very type A person, so you admire, you know, you admire a world leader as for their reasons. So someone will know that you're a real go-getter. Or if you find that nurturing is more your style, like if you want to be like a family lawyer or a child injury lawyer that's going to have the nurturing side, and explain that, like why you admired Mother Teresa or the Pope or something, you know, that just connects to people that way. And I think that also what's really important is that when you're creating these posts, is that you can keep it as professional as you want or not. So if you want to post a picture of your dog, no one's going to say you're a bad lawyer because you posted a picture of your dog. You know, people who didn't want someone who has their dog pictured, okay, then they don't hire. They're probably still going to hire you even if you had a picture of your dog. But by the same token, if somebody realizes that you are human and they can relate to you and you posted that picture of the dog, that's a win. So that, like I said, so not, you know, again, have a discerning eye for whatever human interest stories that you put on, but it's okay to be a little personal. And one of the craziest things that strikes me a lot is, because I talk to our clients a lot in the role that I have here, and I'll hear these really wonderful stories of why someone became a lawyer. You know, they were working in the oil rig and then some terrible accident happened, and then they decided to pursue workers' comp. You know, I had another lawyer who grew up in the car industry. He worked at dealerships for so long that he decided to represent people again in car accident lawsuits. You know, and a lot of times I say to these clients, like, why is this not on your website? Like, why are you not doing this? Or even it could be selling yourself a little bit. Like, I've talked to female lawyers that like will talk about how they really want to work with other female execs. And I'm like, well, nothing on your website talks about that. So having that background, you shouldn't hide from it because in this day and age, everything is on the internet. So if people are going to be looking anyway, then have that window to you because if anything, it makes you even more wonderful if your heart is in it and that's what motivated you to be a lawyer, or you have experience in this particular area and you can relate to your clients. So never be afraid to do that. And once again, again, this isn't meant to say hire PaperStreet. You could talk to other editors. If you yourself don't know how to procure that content, draft it out and have some other expert write it in a way that you feel comfortable to go on the internet. Another fun one, just to sprinkle these in there and out there to keep your minds interested. But everyone loves a did you know? Okay, everybody loves a fun fact. I mean, the internet's fascinated by memes. Maybe you're not going to create memes for your legal blog. If you do, great. But maybe you're not. Maybe you could do some interesting laws or interesting cases that happened. Because again, if you're going to have like a social media account, always use your social media account to highlight your achievements, of course. But if you are just a social media person that's just what I did, my accomplishment, 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 that's not going to get you followers. So every once in a while, yeah, they'll check and see that you have that. But if you share some interesting blogs or share some interesting did you knows, then that's what's going to get people coming back to you. And weird laws or in fact funny cases are really great. Again, it could be anything. There was the big thing that everybody talked about when everybody had sued McDonald's because coffee was too hot, so talk about how that was a thing. I actually came across, I don't recall the state, but someone was trying to sue because they believed they were Elsa and they were the inspiration for Frozen. And that really happens. I mean, if there is Elsa, I'm sure my daughter would like to meet her. But, that was great. And it was really in the news. And it's something that could be really interesting as a blog. So keep it law oriented. Keep it a law that's absolutely bizarre in your state or a case that was really bizarre in your case. It'll just get, even if it's that 2-second chuckle that you have on your
Yeah.
LinkedIn feed or your Twitter or your Facebook, it's worth it. Just go for it. Like I said, you can still be professional and have a sense of humor.
Yeah, absolutely. I like what you said there. Go for the chuckle, right? Have them crack a quick smile on their feet. There's nothing wrong with doing something a little goofy every now and then. And there are some weird laws out there. So,
And
I
plenty
agree.
of weird cases. Have an intern look at it or have your son or daughter try do a Google search to find something they think is really crazy and then you can share that. Like I said, that doesn't even have to be anything that you really devote time and attention to. It's just "Hey, this is
Yeah.
a real interesting law here, or this case actually happened. Summarize it, share it, and you've got engagement. You've got something that could be shared. It's great to think about outside of the box. You still want to be your lawyer. You still want to showcase what you can do. But again, like Allison, go for the chuckle now and then. It's not going to hurt you.
I like the part too. It keeps you human too, because people and approachable. I think sometimes people get a little bit, attorneys maybe they don't seem approachable, so it gives people like that other avenue in to talk to you and not feel intimidated.
And it's true, even if you're a business to business lawyer or a like a corporate lawyer, things like that, just because you're both working for corporations doesn't mean that you might not be nervous to work together or you would appreciate a little bit of, integrity or just humanizing their cases. Again, it's in this day and age because there's lawyers everywhere. Your awards and accolades are going to speak for themselves, but you can make yourself stand out in ways that will be, oh, I really like that this person does that. Maybe they're worth giving a call. It can't hurt you. Again, keep the real content, keep the professional stuff, but the little sprinklings here and there are going to help you in the long run. And with that is a piece that could easily be funny, humorous, or real. And it connects to everything that we've talked about. And we do a lot of these at PaperStreet, so I'm sure Autumn and Allison can chime in with this. But pieces connected to statistics. How do we use those and why are they great blogs?
I mean, there's stats for everything, right? And it allows, I think, a viewpoint maybe that might not initially be so obvious. Stats also lend great to images and graphics that, can enhance your blog or even your core pages. And I think statistics too are great evergreen content. It's kind of stuff you can, use every year. You can come back to, to get the updated numbers. So, if you're looking to kind of fill in your content calendar, kind of applicable to your, what kind of law you're doing, I think, getting kind of like a number roundup is an easy thing to do.
One another great way we use for like showcasing statistics is like the use of infographics. So we can put those in a really visually appealing graphic so that it's showcasing the statistics, but people are drawn to it as they see what it looks like. You can make it really look um, creative and unique, so people click on it too.
And it's an interesting read too. Like for example, if you're an attorney that handles boating accidents and you indicate to your fellow audiences that, most of the accidents that you see or 10,000 accidents that occur every year are because someone does this. It's actually great to showcase that because you're kind of also producing some safety information as well.
Yeah.
So some of the statistics that you're sharing could also be not only just that interesting factor, but educational as well. So, oh, hey, if people install this on the boat, but it tends to cause accidents, tell people. If the most popular intersection for accidents in your community is X, Y, and Z, maybe your post could help lead to a traffic light being installed, or, just people avoiding that intersection at night because that's when most accidents happen. So the statistic pieces are viral, they can make an infographic, or they could simply just help to educate the public. And statistic pieces, I mean, you go on the internet, you can see these yourselves. Statistic pieces tend to be what people click on, but people call it clickbait. And I don't want to say that we're encouraging clickbait for the sake of clickbait, but because people like to read statistics articles, turn what is relevant and connected to your law firm into a statistics piece that's worthwhile for potential clients to read or just your community as a whole. So again, it's popular, so you're doing something that people are very likely to read, but doing it in a way that's reputable and still connected and shows expertise that you are a knowledgeable attorney. Okay? And like that, another topic that's very much clickbait, but it's a good thing if you embrace it the right way, is how-tos and lists. Because as an attorney, I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you could probably write 5 how-tos right now. How to create a will, how to report an accident, how to approach probate, how to contact your local highway authority. There's things that you could probably rattle off the top of your head that would be great how-to or list pieces. Allison, on what else have we done with like those?
I know it sounds cliche, but the opportunities here are endless. And you likely already have these how-tos and lists in your email signatures, your SOPs, your, the various policies in your office, maybe even like some of your handbook stuff, for new employees. This material lives absolutely everywhere in your law firm basic operations. So it's just a matter of kind of, trying to look under the cover to find out what these things are. How-tos and lists are also great evergreen content. You can scatter them throughout the entire, year, and they're usually going to always be relevant. So it's a really timely piece always. I would also say when you're thinking about how-tos and lists, you don't need to think just your clients. It could be material that's for other lawyers, right? So if you're doing like a commercial lit, maybe it's like, how to win a depot, or what to bring to court, or it could be something maybe that speaks directly to the other people that you work with, other vendors or other lawyers, even like expert witnesses, maybe like HR managers, that kind, other groups of people. It doesn't have to be specifically your clients.
I say they're also really beneficial for people who are maybe looking for you, like especially in like a personal injury firm, someone they just had something really tragic happen and they're really just looking for very basic information on how to take the next steps. And the how-tos can really give you that. It's very basic, typically, maybe less of the complex blogs that we're talking about before. So it really gives someone like kind of that first step into like, okay, what do I need to do next? Like I was just in a car accident. These are the steps I need to follow. And then they're feeling like they at least have some information to get them to before they even contact you.
And as I mentioned before, blogs are instrumental for SEO, search engine optimization. And when you have blogs that are how-tos and lists, it's kind of like SEO without even trying, because how-tos are going to be, and those people also asked that Allison had talked about earlier, they're going to be what people are doing. So how to write a will, probably going to be a question. What do I need to wear to court? Probably going to be a question. Top 5 things you need to know before attending a mediation. Those are things that are going to appear in search. But what's also really great about how-tos and lists is another SEO factor. And that's something, again, we could talk about SEO and things like that for a long time, but I'm going to give just a short version of this. But when you have how-tos and lists that are generally helpful and can be applicable to larger audiences, you may get something called backlinks, which means somebody else from a different website may share your like a link to your site. So that will appear higher. That will make your rankings appear higher on Google if it's an applicable site with a good domain authority. So creating these how-tos and lists, it serves so many purposes because people will want to read it. Your existing clients will find it on Google. You may increase your SEO by having these pieces. So it's the kind of thing that, again, as Allison said, you probably could write 5 of them off your head because they're just in your office or in your day-to-day life and will have instrumental benefits to the digital marketing efforts that you're already putting in for your firm. And then the last post that we'll say, the last of our top 10 that we'll cover is something that I almost never see our attorneys do. Maybe Allison or Autumn, you may have seen some of our clients do this. But there is never any harm in connecting, whether it's a blog piece or a podcast or something like that, connecting with someone outside of your profession or simply someone who's not a lawyer. For example, if you are, as Allison said, talking about summer camp, maybe do a piece where you talk to a nurse about what to keep in mind for your child's summer camp. Maybe you talk to the county sheriff about what crimes have been happening in your area lately and what to be on the lookout for. Maybe you talk to a local physician about the illnesses that are going around. I mean, some of them may be too far removed from law. Don't go too crazy with them. But if it's connected enough to your practice of law or your community, it'll show your connection to the community. It will showcase your partnership with other respected professionals because let's face it, a lot of lawyers have bad reputations. They're looked at as ambulance chasers and things like that. When you show that the information you're producing is connected to another, perhaps more trusted professional, that will also help. Now, chances are, if you interview these people, they'll also put the article on their website.
Right.
So there's a million reasons to create these partnerships and create these blogs that are like insights into something connected to your area of law, but still having relevance to potential legal clients or website followers.
Yeah. And you touched on backlinks, right? That person's going to share a link. So you're kind of getting that extra added benefit here too. But don't overthink it. This doesn't have to be a huge thing where you're spending half of a day sitting down like with a nurse. Like it could be a quick phone call. It could even be an email. Maybe you just have a pointed few questions that they can answer via email, and with their approval, you can cite them and quote them. It could be as simple as that. This doesn't have to be something that's, taking up your entire schedule. Don't let it be intimidating.
Absolutely. And again, it doesn't have to be with anyone you don't want to work with. I mean, it could be your colleague's spouse. I mean, just, it's so perfectly fine to talk to someone that you already have somewhat of a connection with. It doesn't have to be you finding someone on a stranger. But
Right.
like I said, if you have that potential connection, maybe another parent in your child's class, anything and everything that will just be relevant and engaging and still a chance for you to demonstrate who you are and your connection to the community is always something that, like I said, makes a really great blog because people are interested. And then it's a great blog because you could share it on social media. And the one thing that I do want to clarify as we wrap this up is that what you should do is that a lot of law firms tend to get panicky because they have these interesting content and they don't want it to dissuade any potential clients or things like that. So what's really important to do is you can have sections of your blog be listed by category. So for example, if you want to have like blogs that are all treatises, not everybody's going to want to read those, but have them be in a particular category. If you want to have human interest pieces or get to know yous, create a blog post for that and have that be available on your blog itself. So that way, if someone doesn't want to read anything on a personal level for you, they're not going to see it. They don't have to see it. But then if they want to learn more about you, you can. So there are ways, and this is very important, like I said, whether you talk to PaperStreet or another web designer or another web developer, have them make it so that your blog will allow you to have those categories and filters. So the person who is interested in how-tos and lists can find them on your site, and the person who doesn't want to see them doesn't have to. But that's really important because, like I said, I even see that with firm news myself because I've looked at other law firms' websites. Even I always talk about this, but when my grandfather went ill, we needed an attorney to help settle his estates with the nursing home because I don't have any experience in that particular state. So I looked at those law firms' websites. I don't want to see award after award after award after award. I just was scanning the blog to see what was relevant. So always make sure that you can have all these pieces of content and they vary, but allow the people, your audience, to see, okay, well, I really don't want to read the human interest piece right now. I want a how-to. Have it be a how-to section. I don't really want to care about local news right now. I want to know more about, workers' comp. Have that be a section. So there's plenty of ways to have your website's blog filtered so you can keep what you feel are the most important front and center, but then the other materials are easily available for those who are interested. All right, with that, I guess we'll wrap this up. We hope this was an informative session for you. Thank you, Alice and Autumn, for some great creative ideas. And we'll talk to you next time, Paper Street listeners. Have a great one.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.